Welcome to a fresh episode of The Power of Story and Science. Today, for the first time, I'm going rogue, out into the wild. We are currently at the PharmSci 360 convention, an annual event put on by the American Association of Pharmaceutical Scientists, for whom I have been a career development speaker for some time. And today I have the privilege of being able to conduct an interview right here on the convention floor, hence the background noise. So this will be a little bit different from our usual studio setting. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. My conversation partner today is Dr. Thomas Hartung, who gave the keynote address yesterday at the opening plenary session of this conference.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad to have you here. You have a very long bio that I read when you were speaking yesterday. Give us the condensed version of what you do and who you do it for.
Okay. So I'm a scientist who first of all combines medicine with both biochemistry, cellular approaches, and mathematics, informatics. So I'm trying to find the mechanisms of disease, of toxicology, and also of finding drugs to understand diseases and treat them.
Okay.
And at the same time, I'm interested in getting the rubber on the ground. So I'm trying to communicate this science, I'm trying to influence policy processes in order to open up for these new approaches.
Communicate the science and influence policy approaches.
Yes. Because very often, especially with the focus I have chosen, which is to transform biomedical sciences from the traditional approach to using animals to something which is using modern technologies, is often hindered by structural problems, by legal requirements.
Okay.
And that's why I'm trying not only to help develop the science, but also to communicate these solutions and lead to actual change.
So this is one of the policy areas that's important to you, is removing animal testing from the science.
Yeah, and this is for different reasons. The first one is certainly ethics, but it is also clearly an economical question. It is quite interesting that we are very rarely looking into the shortcomings of these animal tests and where misleading results lead us to take the wrong decisions.
Oh, okay.
So if you develop a drug after having spent almost $1 million in a lot of animal tests and others, and you want to go into humans, 95% of these drugs fail.
Really?
95%. So it's not a very predictive process.
Not a predictive process at all. So all that...
And it eats up a lot of the time you have of a patent just going through these phases. And we have just seen the COVID pandemic. Suddenly 9 vaccines and 2 antiviral drugs were developed in 1.5 years. A process which normally takes 12 years. And so we can do obviously faster, and one of the main differences was we never tried these drugs really extensively in animal models.
Okay,
Yeah.
you skipped the animal models.
We skipped the animal models.
What made it possible to do that?
Certainly some experiences from other diseases with similar entities, but also just daring it, just going very quickly into the first humans. We know, for example, the Moderna vaccine story. The Chinese published the sequence of the first virus on the 13th of January. On the 16th, they started production. And 66 days later, the first human was injected.
Wow.
Yeah, so the only animal test which was done before was injecting it into a mouse and see that antibodies were formed.
Okay.
No proof of being protective, no proof of having no side effects. This was all assumed just based on previous experiences with similar vaccines for other infectious diseases.
Well, now, yesterday I heard you speaking as well about the role of AI, artificial intelligence, the increasing role that it's taking in drug development. Now, you know, for my audience, when we talk about AI has been around for some time. There's been neural networks and other applications that are described as being part of AI, but for so many people, AI just sprang onto the scene about a year ago with conversational models like ChatGPT, and yet the technology is something that's been evolving for quite some time. Is that something that's changing the testing and development as well?
Absolutely. I think there's no area which is untouched by AI. The reason for is this, you really have here synergy of three things. One is we get more and more data.
More data.
90% of all data in the world have been produced in the last 3 years.
90% of all data in the world has been produced in the last 3 years. I just wanted to underscore that because that's such a mind-boggling statistic.
Yes. At the same time, our computers get better and better. Many know this as Moore's law. It's 60 years old. Every second year, our computers are twice as powerful at half the price.
Right.
So we have fantastic computers nowadays. Our iPhones are far, far better than anything we had to fly to the moon.
That's right.
And then the third element is the AI algorithms.
Okay.
For the last 12 years, since deep learning was introduced, they are doubling the power of the AI approach every 3 months.
Every 3 months?
Yes.
Doubling what exactly?
The power of identifying pattern in larger and larger data sets.
Okay, the power of the algorithms that find the patterns. I see.
And this is, this means today's AI is about 8 times more powerful than the one of last year.
8 times more powerful than a year ago. That's amazing.
And you see this, for example, with ChatGPT, which at the moment everybody follows somehow. ChatGPT 4, released in March, is about 10 times more powerful than the ChatGPT 3.5. For example, when you simulate human skills like taking the high school final exams, the SAT in reading or math, it came from a 10th percentile, which means being as good as 10% of the students, to 90th percentile. 90th percentile. And the same for even taking a simulated lawyer bar exams. So from a 10th percentile to a 90th percentile.
To take the bar exam.
In just 1 year.
In 1 year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is why many people have still a feeling, I tried it out, it's a bit gimmicky. Yeah, they tried out last year's version.
They tried out last year's version. Got to try the current version. That's really amazing. You know what strikes me, or what struck me yesterday hearing you speak, is not only your grasp of the science, but your command of the stage. You're a very skilled communicator. And I'd like to talk about that a bit because, the theme of this program is the power of story and science. It's the idea that scientists and other technical presenters have to not only be able to find the story in their data, they have to be able to communicate that story and not just communicate the data.
Yes, I think that's a very important thing. It's my personal background which led me to this. I did not anticipate that it would be so helpful for me. I financed my studies with stand-up comedy, political stand-up comedy.
Let's make sure that didn't get lost. You financed your studies doing stand-up comedy, which means you were good enough to be getting paid at it.
Yes, absolutely. I did 550 performances.
550 performances.
A little bit of radio, a little bit of television. I had to decide when I started my PhD, it was no longer possible to make appointments half a year in advance. I will be for this 3 evenings in this city of the country.
Okay, but the schedule just didn't work anymore.
And I then transitioned to writing for a while, but this was not the point. It really gives you an enormous training, gives you the self-confidence, but also it gives you a feeling on how to communicate. Because you really have to fight for your audience. You have to get their attention. You have to communicate from where they are.
Where they are.
So you will always talk to different people. These are either general scientists or the specialists in your field. Or suddenly it's a lay audience. You don't change the message, but you change how you package it.
You change how you package it. Okay. Because you're adapting what you're doing to your audience.
Exactly. You need to think, where are they? And if you do not reach at least 70% of the people, I would say, just roughly. If you don't have really most people being able to understand what you say, you lose them. Yeah? They will take out their phone and start doing emails instead.
That's right.
So for this reason, you always have to come back very quickly if you dive deep into data where only a few of the specialists can really follow. But then you come back and need to say some things which are of general interest, which spark an idea. So I really think that there's a very important part of this is being aware of the audience and getting a condensed version of your message.
You were talking about, coming back. Not getting lost in the weeds of the data, because you'll lose part of your audience. You have to come back to them. So it makes it sound like it's almost more of a conversation, a dialogue for you than a monologue.
In the best case, it is. And this is something where it starts really with looking into the audience, picking some people to whom you seem to talk. This gives a much better dynamic and attention span. Also for the rest, they have the feeling you're communicating somehow to the audience. Very different to looking on my screen and my pointer and following this, and which is making people lose interest and attention. Lose interest and attention. Yeah.
What are some of the techniques that you use to make sure you're engaging your audience and holding their attention?
I mean, I tell my students always, you have to first think about the start and the end.
The start and the end.
Yeah. The first moment somebody comes on stage, or everybody is looking, is it worth my time, or is this the moment to take a little nap or watch or take your phone out? Yeah. And so you need something which is an eye catcher or ear catcher. Say something which is of interest.
Say something of interest.
Yeah. So that people say, So yesterday, for example, I started saying, I want to show you that in the future we will have to write science not with IE but with AI. And then this was a starting point. This is for most people, they have never heard about this thought. Yeah. And it is packaging very the essence of my talk, which was about how AI changes our science at
how
this
it's disruptive.
moment, yeah?
Yes.
And similarly, you have to find something at the end which leaves them with key thoughts. So I hate that the last slide is, and now I want to thank, and now I want to thank, and now I want to thank, and my donors and my sponsors and so on. Now, if I do want to thank somebody, I do it very early on.
If you want to thank someone, you do it early on. I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. So I don't want to lose all of the attention which I've built up to something nobody is really interested, except they hope to be on this slide. Might be terribly disappointed not to be.
Might be disappointed if they're not on the slide. What about this practice of ending with the Q&A? I couldn't help but notice that yesterday, when some questions were posed to you, that many people who didn't have questions started to get up and leave.
Yeah. I think some people appreciate this. It takes a lot of experience to do a good Q&A, and also obviously depends on whether you created enough interest, whether the crowd is interested. Yesterday we were competing with the reception to follow, and
that's right.
The booth was waiting.
The booth was waiting.
But I think many people appreciate this. It also shows your command of your science, that you can instantly really answer whatever question comes. I think it's good training, but it's often more difficult than the prepared talk.
Often more difficult. What do you think of the practice of having some type of closing remark to give after the Q&A, so the last thing people hear isn't, if there's no more questions, then thank you very much?
Yeah, I'm trying to do this within the question. So when I see we're coming to the end of the Q&A, I'm trying to end each and every of them with a more fundamental remark.
Okay.
So that it could stand as the last word.
So it could stand as the last word.
Because very often you depend on the moderator, and if the moderator is not asking you to do a final remark, you just have, and now, thank you very much, and it's done. And then what I want to say is a difficult one. Yeah?
It is.
But I think also if you do a Q&A, you should always seek to give answers which are not highly specified, even if the person is asking for something highly special. Okay. Because you're losing again the interest of the people. At a moment where the people are digesting what your message was. So also there it is good to have to come up with some really principled things you have to say.
Some principles that reinforce what you've just been talking about.
Yeah.
it's unfortunate that more scientific presenters don't have your skill at doing that.
I'm trying to teach my students, so when they are giving their test talks, I'm trying to give them exactly this experience.
Good.
This also involves some things to just make clear to them how much optics play a role,
Okay.
how important it is how you present yourself, especially at the beginning when everybody is looking. Is this going to be important or not? Your posture is something people really realize. Yeah, the way you go to the microphone. Yeah, whether you are self-confident, whether you're looking. I tell them, look into the audience and count 1, 2, and then you start speaking.
Simple things like that.
Very simple things, but they are really getting you in the focus of the crowd. They say, well, why is he not starting? And subconsciously they're saying this, and then they see, okay, it is to build a relationship. And then you start. You start with something which is not, oh, I thank for the wonderful introduction and I'm happy to be here and it's my 5th time. Yeah, then you have already lost half of the people.
That's right.
Yeah, you can say this, but start with a line which is prepared, which says, wow, there's something which could be interesting.
So a lot of this goes to the way that you prepare. You know your material so well, and you're prepared to answer a question in a way that not only goes to the specifics of what's being asked, but ties it into a broader principle that's been part of your subject.
Yes.
So that anything could be the closing remark if that ends up being the last question.
Yeah, that's for the Q&A, certainly, where you have no control. But I also try that each slide has a message, and that the message is also typically the title of my slide.
Okay.
So that even if they don't understand the slide, they cannot read the details, which often is the case, more often than you think, they get it. Even if I miss saying it, I really want to stress each thing has a message.
You know, I'm not a pharmaceutical scientist. My background is in physics, not biology or chemistry.
Okay.
And yet I was able to follow your presentation yesterday, even if I didn't understand all of the acronyms.
I assume. No, but for me, something which I find interesting is typically what I put on my slides. And I also use quite a bit of things which are not my science, not the results of my things.
Not your results.
I'm advocating a field. I'm advocating change.
Advocating.
And for this reason, I have absolutely no problem to take something I found intriguing, an argument, water on our mills, we say in German. This is something which which is helping me to make my argument better than I could probably show with my own data. The people like getting some brainy quotes. They like if you have interesting statistics, interesting facts, to sparkle into your own presentation.
So as we draw this delightful conversation near to a close, as you're thinking about an audience for my program who may be made up of scientists, engineers, other people who give presentations who are interested in being able to connect with their audiences better, so that their information finds a home in the audience's mind, so that they make a difference, as we talked about. What is one piece of advice you would offer?
I think you should, besides developing your content as a scientist, you should also pay attention to how to present it. And it is a continuous quest to do classes on rhetorics. I'm reading books on presentation styles like TED Talks or graphics or Cute Brevity. There was a recent read. Things which I think are important to stay aware of, not falling in love with your own talking.
Not falling in love with your own talking. I love that.
Yeah, so it's really important that we come back to the basic techniques, and this requires. There's a lot of books and YouTube channels and whatever. It also does not matter what you really do. It is just raising the awareness of applying some of this thinking to science, and this already makes a difference.
Raising awareness. Well, and we've had an opportunity here to raise some awareness. I thank you for the conversation. And I hope that what we've done here with my audience is raised awareness of the power of combining great content with great communication skills. And we've also raised some awareness of the alternatives to animal testing, which I know is important to you also.
Yes, I want change, and change does not come from my scientific papers. It comes by moving hearts and minds of the audiences, the press, and then policymakers.
Change comes from moving hearts and minds. What a great place to end the conversation. Dr. Thomas Hartung, thank you for being with me on the power of story and science.
Thanks for having me.